I was working in a restaurant, waiting tables one night. I've been at this place for a long time, over 10 years, almost 15 years. And I was waiting on a couple, and it turned out it was their anniversary. So I asked them how long they'd been together, and they told me. And then they asked me about myself. Was I with anybody? Now, at this point, I had learned to avoid personal questions because invariably someone would ask me, "What do you do besides waiting tables?" And if I mentioned I was a writer, they would, of course, ask, "Well, what have you published?" And the answer was always nothing. And so it got very uncomfortable. So I just, by this time, avoided talking about myself with customers. But on this night, this couple seemed to really like each other. I know that sounds odd, but sometimes anniversary dinners, they're not always happy events. It's like the couple is just hanging on to this marriage and they're going to try and have a good time because it's their anniversary and there's as much tension as there is celebration. Not these two. They seem to really like and enjoy each other. And I wasn't particularly busy. And so when they asked me if I was married, I said yes. And they said, for how long? And then they said, and I told them, and they said, well, how did you meet? And then next thing I know, I was telling them the story of how my wife and I got together. And it's a long and I thought romantic story because I'd seen her in a play and fallen in love with her and then gotten together with her there. This was in my senior year. And then she moved away at the end of my senior year. And I was heartbroken. For years. I was heartbroken, dreaming of her, thinking about her, feeling like I'd missed out on something. And then by some chance, I called her when I was 24 and down in LA, and she'd been thinking about me and I'd been thinking about her. And next thing you know, we're together and we were living, happily ever after. That's the condensed version. But I didn't tell them the condensed version. I told them the longer version, really stretched out because I had nothing else going on. And they were listening. Telling a story when people actually listen to you, when they're giving you their full attention, it's such a generous act. And it's so much easier to speak when you're being heard. And I was enjoying telling this story. And when I got done, when I finished telling these customers this story, the man looked up at me and he said, "You give us reason to live." Just about knocked me over. I couldn't think of a better compliment to give an artist. And if I was honest up to that point, the novels I was writing, trying to sell so I could get out of the restaurant, I didn't feel like they were written to give people reason to live. Not really. They were written to get published, to bring me success. And hearing that, I thought, that's what a story should do. That's what a story should do, because I loved telling that story because of how I felt while I told it. And also because I felt this love story was about the good part of life, what the really good part of life is. And it's not survival, because that job waiting tables, it had some nice parts to it. There were good parts, camaraderie, being on your feet, the action, but it's not the money. The good part isn't the money. It's not survival. It's not winning. It's not acclaim. It's not praise. It's not applause. I felt like that story really focused on the good part of life, which is what makes life worth living. And I kind of resolved at that point to say, I need to start telling stories somehow to remind me why life is worth living, of the good part. And so, look, you get to write whatever story you want. You got to write the story that means something to you. But I encourage you, think about the good part. Because, if art is good for anything besides just entertaining us, it's good for reminding us what this is really about. And it's not just about survival, not dying. It's not. Life is about something else. And art, if it can do nothing else, can remind us of that. The good part. What is it really? It's somewhere beneath the surface. It's never what we're doing exactly. Stories can point to it. Stories are beautiful that way because they show what happened. They focus on what happens, the way we think about what happens, the things we like to have happen to us, the things we don't like to have happen to us, our tragedies and our victories. But it's never about that. There's something else beneath that that is really the good part. And a story, if told right, can remind us of that. And anytime I'm reminded of the good part of life and why it's worth living, I'm grateful. Grateful to the artist, grateful in a way just for life. So let yourself think about that. It's a question worth asking. What's the good part, really? What is the good part? If you can answer that, you'll have yourself a story. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Hey, thanks for listening. If you don't want to miss the good part, hit subscribe. I'll do these every week, I promise. And if you like it, say so. I love to hear from you, and it helps other people find it. Don't you want other people to find it? Of course you do. So until next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.